Hey everybody, this is Carlos Ocelot, founder and CEO of G2 Esports, former professional gamer, and wonderful bodybuilder, as you may have known. Of course, you know me for that, pretty sure. And you're watching Dancan's channel. Thorin, my man. Enjoy.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Elitists United, and our guests for this episode are a bunch of support players. So obviously Veteran didn't have any good guests lined up. He just auto-filled us with supports. No, it's obviously in the bottom left-hand corner, we've got Steeelback. That's correct. If somehow you've been in... Well, if you've only been watching LEC for the last few years, he's actually a support now. He's actually pretty good even. So, fuck knows, he changed two things. Then in the bottom right, that's a joke, of course. Then in the bottom right, we've obviously got VandeR, who was always a support, except for a long, long time ago when he was a shit AD carry. So, I'd just stick with that. Sorry, mate. Just say you were always a support. So, we all know Polish AD carries are all garbage, except for that one guy from like season 2 who sadly doesn't play anymore. But whatever. Miss you, mate. Right? Yeah, exactly, of course. The one good one. The one who actually had the skills. So... Right, this is the first thing we have to start with, Veteran, is we can't start with like a serious show and do all stuff like that because we have to get the memes out of the way. That way we can move on to the serious conversation. So first things first, right, I'll ask you this actually, Veteran, is you've actually been a massive advocate of Steeelback for, I would say, the last year or so, actually, like basically since he was in LDLC, and you were always saying he was one of your names along with Labrov and the other names people probably know off by heart by now as people who were on Veteran's shortlist. So outline again, in case no one's ever seen the episode, what were the reasons as to why you actually thought the LEC teams already should have picked up Steeelback as opposed to waiting until things went to shit like they have now to get him into the team? What were the qualities that stood out?
Steeelback was applying concepts in LDLC that half the supports in the LEC didn't actually understand at the time. There were aspects of map play that he does that most supports were missing out on, really easy opportunities to make things happen around the map. He was taking support as a second jungler role in the way that it should be, or even the second mid lane role in the way that it should be, in the way that most of them weren't. He had really good laning mechanics at a fundamental level, which is what we praise Labrov for, but he had that with the map knowledge of an experienced veteran. And because of this, I always referred to him as like the one that if you wanted to pluck any sort of ERL support and win a game now, it should be Steeelback. Labrov has a lot of potential. He doesn't understand aspects of map play in the way that Steeelback does, and it extends beyond just mid to late game stuff, which is what Targamas, the guy who's basically replaced you on Academy, was always really good at. He's doing this at an early game level as well, which is why Pyke is one of his mainstay picks. And he was so good at that on LDLC that he managed to make the rest of his teammates become the most overrated players in the history of the ERLs, with people saying, hey, it was like S+ tier, Ika getting a massive contract to go to Immortals over in North America.
Yeah, he's a good guy. That's what a support's supposed to do, make everyone else look good. Exactly.
Yeah, but like with Steeelback was honestly the glue that held it all together. And he made up for a lot of DeJoko's flaws on that team. I think DeJoko was good, but I don't think DeJoko was anywhere near the best jungler in the ERLs. I think he didn't have a very good engage sense, and I thought a lot of the control that they had of the map early came from Steeelback himself. That's more than you can say of most supports in the LEC. Hylissang and Mickey X were very notable last year because of these map-wide aspects and because of how vastly different it was between them and the rest of the support gulf until VandeR came back in, and then VandeR was like the clear third best. Dreams was getting praised in Spring because of his map play, because he was doing things the vast majority of supports weren't. These things that took supports to the next level were things that Steeelback had already been displaying in LDLC that he could do. So for me, he was always the guy that had to be brought up, to the point where even like Freeze, who famously previously had beef with Steeelback, when we had him on Elitists United, he agreed with me that Steeelback's 100% LEC ready and he should already be there. Right?
Okay. So you've done a good job there. You've seamlessly led into the obvious memes that we have to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Right? Even though people think this is a joke, it is true that like Reddit narratives, Twitter narratives, they're real things. Like once they take hold, because I always say this, they're not real in like the tangible sense. It's just a bunch of ideas. But once enough people start to believe the idea, like that just becomes your reputation, sadly, in League of Legends. So like I think your biggest problem, Steeelback, is there's two really high profile things. One is that people... I mean, I don't give a fuck, mate. So I'll just tell you straight up. People think you're the worst EU LCS champion of all time. That's just because, like, at that point in time, the rest of that team was amazing when you left. So it makes you look bad. And then the other thing is what he referenced just there, which is even when Forgiven was retired, he basically did beat you 1v1 in lane on Twitter. Like, like that was, here's the thing, even though obviously it was mean as fuck, that was one of the most outrageous, like, 360 windmill dunk pull the whole backboard down, smash the glass. Like, that was outrageous, that dunk out of nowhere. So sadly, that just means that people take the meme aspect and assume you're a terrible player, but you don't even play AD carry anymore. So give us some thoughts. Like, why did you switch to support?
Well, I switched to support because, well, I've been playing AD for quite a while. It was for 4 years, I think, 5. And I started to like get bored of it. There was that. And there was also that I thought that I couldn't be the best on AD. I felt like I was a bit stuck, like I was working a lot, but I was a bit stuck and I couldn't really do anything on the map. I saw a lot of engage that could happen on the map, and my support was never doing it, or was never doing the right roam or the right engage on lane also. So it's like, yeah, a bit of like these 3 things, and so I just tried to play support.
That's actually straight fire, by the way. He is the first League of Legends player I know, veteran, that literally took like Gandhi's famous statement, like "be the change you want to see in the world," and just took it literally in the game League of Legends. Like, I wish more people would do that. Like, all those mid laners you hear complain about the jungle, you have a fucking go then. Go on then. Let's see what you do. See when you're behind in the first 5 minutes, how you survive and come and gank for me. So I love that. I think that's sick. And also, let's face it, that is the most famous role swap in the history of League of Legends, which is a bunch of AD carries going to support, as in his former coach, Yellowstar, becoming really good supports, actually.
Yeah, Yellowstar's actually playing support now in LDLC now that Steeelback's not on it. So he's actually gone back to that. But yeah, when I'm thinking of ADCs role swapping, Yellowstar is probably the big one everyone thinks of, right? And he was
Afromu, Core JJ. It's the most famous role swap in the game that works.
Core JJ, actually, yeah. Wait, no, I had forgotten Core JJ. And Core JJ was a monster shit AD carry, so that was like a really good swap for him. Yeah. Actually,
his is like VandeR's, where it's like it's smarter if you just say you're always a support player. Like, I was always a straight fire support player. I was really brainy. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I had some ADC mechanics. I was not that bad, but I think in general it's kind of the easiest role swap in a way that you know a lot of lane matchups already. When you played ADC, you know what your support is supposed to do, and you see kind of what they lacked when they play with you. So I think it's a quite natural role swap in a way.
Veteran, listen, this is just who I am as a person. I don't give a fuck. Right? When you said before that, like, half the LEC supports don't even have what Steeelback is doing, does VandeR?
Yeah, VandeR does. VandeR does, but he's okay. So there are sometimes this split where it seems like he loses focus a bit and maybe he doesn't quite understand the entirety of the map state, but the intent is at least always there for VandeR. Last year, for reasons that were fixed in the most recent off-season, there just weren't simply many good opportunities for VandeR to actually do the map-wide play that he could, but every opportunity that he did have, he did take. And he became like the clear third best support in the LEC last year, in my opinion, because of that. Now that he has Hans Samade, you can actually see that him and Inspired are working together a lot more now, and you always knew that could be in play because on the academy team, on the Rogue Academy team, VandeR was basically straight up leading the entire map. Inspired got a lot of praise there, but you could tell it was kind of an LDLC-esque situation where VandeR was taking a lot of charge, particularly when the map broke open in mid-game. VandeR always recognized picks that could be made on bouncing waves and was quite clearly always leading that, and that's very reminiscent of what Steeelback does in a lot of mid-game scenarios. So you could always see that was there. Obviously, back on HGK, that was kind of when support started doing this, and we were covering this a lot, and we kept covering this on Schalke. But now, I think if you're not doing this in support, it's similar to if you're a jungler who doesn't play around bouncing, pushing waves, and fixing the map state in that regard. I think you're just not a good support if you're not considering this now. So I think VandeR does it, and I think VandeR's always being one of the first people to do it, and VandeR also has good mechanics, which is probably because he's an AD carry all sorts of support. Now, maybe they're all like that except Mickey X, I don't know, because Mickey X has mechanics, and as far as I know,
he was playing a lot of mid lane in the beginning, I think. He was like a mid lane, started playing support.
There you go.
So what you do is, if you've got like good but not the best mechanics, just swap to support, because they're all just girls anyway. So you'll probably just wreck them complete, and then you just have to have a bit of a brain. Like at that point, you're like, oh my god, Mickey X, the most insane support mechanics in the world. Like, you mean he has mechanics? Yeah, I understand that, right?
Yes.
He's not just playing like Lulu or something. What are you talking about? Like,
I mean, this. I mean,
selfish role swap though. to support.
Yeah,
Selfie's role swap.
Selfie is role swapping.
Listen, Selfie's only role swap in his career was permanently benching himself for fucking about half a decade, and then wondering why everyone was like, why don't people talk about me from support groups? Like, no one even knows what the fuck support crew is, you idiot. You just wasted 5 years of your career.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people I've seen do that we don't talk about.
It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
the only person worse at managing their own career than Selfie is Forgiven.
God.
That's it. That's enough said. That's the only person. By the way, you'll like this, because I even thought, because I'm going to do a video on that whole topic where I draw together all the Forgiven thoughts and just do a banger video. I've even come up with the title, which I'll tell you now just because it's funny. I'm purposely memeing in the title. It's going to be Forgiven Commits Career Sudoku. That's what I'm actually going to call the title.
Fair enough.
Why not?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he came in last minute there, but I do think role swapping the support is probably the future of the support world in general. I think globally, pretty much everyone assumes that that's going to be the future of it right now, because even historically in Europe, the best supports who weren't role swapped from a professional career in another place have typically just off-rolled, right? Like Miffy basically never played support in solo queue.
What's funny is people don't actually know. I mean, to be fair, it's an obscure game, but in the game he played before, Bloodline Champions, he was like one of the fucking superstar players, apparently. Like, he was like some mechanical monster who used to play at 120 ping from the Canary Islands and be wrecking everyone. Yeah, that's why when I actually, because I knew a little bit about that, because people like Semler from CSGO came from that game, and they were all telling me, like, what, this Mythy guy plays League of Legends? And I was like, yeah, and they were like, what does he play? Like, must be like AD carry, mid lane? I was like, no, he plays a support role, mate. Like, what, the one that does all the wards? I was like, yeah. But at the time, to be fair, it ties in, because people won't know in 2020 this veteran, but back in the day, he used to be a monster on Thresh. He had fucking sick mechanics back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2015, he was regarded as just the best mechanical support you had ever produced. Like that was how
mechanics as well. He was like canceling everything with Qs. It was quite impressive a few years ago.
It wasn't until like the second split on G2 that people started changing opinion on that, but that is actually a long time ago now. That's like, what, 3-4 years ago now? Fucking hell. Actually, we're old. But yeah,
it was like 2K17, right?
Yeah, he was always known as the mechanical beast, but he never played support in solo queue. He didn't practice it there. And this was actually really apparent this week, how much of a difference that still makes in support. Like, honestly, your game versus SK, you didn't exactly win that off of insane macro. You won that because on every 3v3 in midsection, Limit was thinking about mechanics as, I think I can hook this guy here. Oh, and you were like, oh, okay, well now they're completely fucked. I can walk up, step this, and just save my shield and job done. And just from that fundamental mechanical area, you just automatically look better than Limit, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they were thinking all the time that they could one-shot me, but I have a shield, guys, so you can't one-shot me.
It's so when players with a fundamental understanding of mechanics switch to the support role, it's very fucking obvious, and there's a very big discrepancy, and that's going to be the future of the world for sure. I think Selfie swapped back, but I wouldn't blame him if he swaps to support again, because there's a lot of places where that's probably going to be useful, especially given that people just assume there isn't a support talent pool in Europe. So they're probably going to assume you're just better if you switch anyway. It's kind of true.
By the way, Steeelback, since we referenced before, like memes, like just you joining the LEC, you must be a magnet for memes, mate. Like, you already inadvertently created another amazing meme / copy pasta, which was that insane fight between Attila and Jack Troll. It was just like, it was like a really bad marriage that had broken up, and they were like, yeah, well, you know what, your dick's small. Oh yeah, well maybe if you learn how to please a woman, then they were just going fucking mental on each other. Like, what did you think of that when?
well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't sure about how they were, the relation they had together, but I just guessed it after the Twitter drama, and they were like, they were kind of like going hard on each other. Well, I don't know. I think like it's a tough spot to be in, and I don't know who started it, but
I can't answer that. So Attila basically semi-leaked that you are going to be playing on the Spanish talk show. He said that there's going to be some spicy changes to Vitality the next day, and then someone else said, "Oh, is Jack Troll going to Giants Gaming?" And then he said he'd rather cut his balls off than play with Jack Troll again, and that's how it started.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it didn't go well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually think Attila kind of looked like he came out on top there, but only because most people didn't understand that he had started it. So to most people, it just seemed like Jack Troll came out of nowhere being really insecure on it, and whereas Attila was flat back on that.
I mean, I think that Jack Troll doesn't deserve like all the shit that he's getting though. I think he's a fine player, and I don't know. I think for a while they were really good together, Attila and Jack Troll, and then they started dropping, if I remember right, and they were not like playing good together. So maybe they kind of tilted towards each other, and then yeah, they still like remember that time. But I don't think he deserves to be like that, like flame, you know.
Yeah, well, what's good is we can all have different opinions. So
Yeah, I mean,
Jack Troll is pretty good actually. I think.
wait a minute. Listen, VandeR.
Polish, he's Polish.
Just because he's from the same country, don't get silly with us right now. Come on.
Okay, support change and vitality is not like what this team actually needs, you know. No, like offense to anyone, or like I'm not saying that who's better, Steeelback or Jack Troll, but I feel like it's not support role to like deciding or like biggest problem in the team. I think Steeelback has like big upgrade over Jack Troll in a way that that's what Veteran kind of said, that he tries to play the whole map and you could see it. I think Jack Troll doesn't try to do it, but it's not like Steeelback brings a huge upgrade over Jack Troll in my opinion, and mainly like mid jungle I think is the.
I mean, they don't have the real mid laner. Sure, there's other factors to play. Of course, junglers had some issues in certain games.
Scheme's development is getting kind of scuffed though right now, right? Like we can make excuses.
Pretty good in the beginning actually, the jungle, but I think lately he. I mean, it's a big impact when you keep losing the games and losing.
Yeah,
it's hard for everyone to keep improving, and actually, it's a lot of times that people had good ideas in the beginning, and just because they started losing, they changed what was good, but they just didn't execute it properly, and then you start playing like just bad champions, and it just goes even worse, you know.
I mean, at the same time, every other jungler is practicing with their starting mid laner, has consistent practice with the rest of their team, and they're all developing properly, whereas Schemes doesn't have the environment where he can grow as well as he should be, which is why Steeelback looks so impactful, right? Because he's kind of fixing all the problems that they can't fix otherwise, which is what he did for LDLC.
Well, I think it's always that a change might just bring something positive, you know. If everything is just going horrible, then just change something, maybe it will work, you know. Or...
Just psychologically it can help for that factor, exactly. Of course. Yeah, exactly. And also you do that thing where, like, here's the thing, even if you personally say Jack Troll wasn't the biggest problem, it can actually be useful to sort of in your mind think, oh, that was the guy, was the problem, and now he's gone, there's no issue anymore. Like within the team, who cares? Like that might even be what helps you. Like, what about this then? So, Veteran, you told me coming into this split, like you contrasted Comp with Reckless, which obviously has you know, to be fair, he obviously is nothing like Forgiven because he's a Greek AD carry who can handle losing and still keep his shit together. So you're like, oh, I did that there. I'm here all week, mate. I'm here all week. Anyway, so the question I was going to ask you is, though, obviously now he is reunited with his bot lane partner from LDLC in Steeelback. So was Steeelback part of why Comp's in the LEC now?
I mean, yes, but I would also say that Comp, being as good as he was relative to the rest of the other ERL carries, also allowed Steeelback to be this guy who could control the whole map, right? 2v2 is 2v2. And it's not like Steeelback could have done this with some of the lower tier, like if we... He's going to hate me for saying this, but like if we put Barcode in the Steeelback lane, I don't think we're going to see Steeelback like carrying the entire map 24/7, right? Like you need someone who can match 2v2. The only bot lane that could match 2v2 versus LDC on a consistent basis was the big bot lane, right? With Kazi and Lapov. And honestly, the whole story of the ERLs in terms of AD carry was just Kazi versus Comp. And just on the pure basis that they started struggling in that matchup, and that if Big got a winning matchup like when they got the Draven, they would actually play it out decently properly. Suddenly Steeelback couldn't be everywhere at once. But the only way that they made it work was because Comp was so far above every other AD carry there. So he obviously deserves a lot of praise here. And I think you guys should have just been like snapped up as a pair in the immediacy of Vitality's roster change. Also, I just want to say, like, most people were predicting you guys would look like a team that could contest for the third world spot in summer, on the basis that at that point it would be really obvious Jack Troll is the only issue of the team and that you would be upgraded onto it Steeelback. So, like, I I think I kind of agree with VandeR. Jack Troll's not necessarily the first and foremost problem right now, but if they had Melissa in the first place, it would have been really obvious that you just have to move Steeelback up and you have a really strong lineup there. But,
okay. Steeelback, any thoughts about reuniting with Comp?
Well, I always thought that he was a really good laner, and like as you said, he's a big part of why I was able to roam, able to get even kills on lane pretty easily, because he has a good understanding about when to trade and when to fight. So it made it very easy for me to lane. And also when I played in academy, we were scrimming the main team. I felt that he had a really good pressure on lane and a really strong mechanics. So yeah, I'm happy to be back with him.
What do you think about like Vitality? Obviously, the problem is like the table situation isn't very good in terms of the standings. Like, are you someone who can handle if the team's losing?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, if I can handle it.
Yeah.
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 A lot of people can't, as we've seen this split.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that I can handle it because, well, I was in academy and it was working pretty well. And when I came into the team, it was a fresh start, and I kind of bring that like positivity that I had in academy, and I feel that I've experienced and I've been through tough splits, really hard times. So I kind of know how to handle things now, and I know what to not go into and what to go into. And I'm just trying to make everyone go in the right way. And yeah, I think that the experience is helping me a lot.
Actually, I never actually asked you this. Were you like not just the in-game lead in LDLC? I think it was quite obvious that you were, but out of game, were you doing a lot of things for LDLC, or were you still kind of trusting that coaching staff and stuff? Or do you see yourself as kind of like the captain of these kinds of teams? And are you bringing that into the current Vitality?
I guess that I'm trying to help people, and I'm trying to be the captain without really being the one, like I'm trying to like teach the direction and show ways, but I'm not directly doing it, and
Sure.
But I think that I've certainly an impact outside of the game, and in LDLC too. I had a lot of impact.
Wasn't Joko like talking a lot as well and making plays? Because we played together with Joko, so I know that he a lot of stuff, like aggressive one, he will just say, "Hey, come here, we can go top and dive." It's
Early game, Joko was really good at shot calling. He has good understanding about where is the jungle and when to counter jungle and when to ganks also. He was very good at that. But the mid game, it was more me that was snowballing the game and doing the Nash call and all these mid game fights. And that's why we were winning a lot of games, I think, because Joko was really good early game and we were able to finish the game also, which is hard for some.
Sure.
Should we talk a bit about Rogue then? Like, VandeR, you are the leader of Rogue, surely.
Yeah, you can say it, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, you're like the fucking Pied Piper, mate. You just come out there, tell them what to do, all these little... I would say monkeys, but nowadays you get in trouble if you say that. All these little kids just running around the map, doing whatever, trying to just spam Olaf all the time. How did he whip all these rookies into shape, mate?
Like in the first year or like academy times, because we started to get an Ultraliga, right? Polish league, we were screaming Turkish teams and other academy teams. Then it's kind of way different how the game works and how you develop as a team, because just like so much easier that people don't put enough effort onto some areas of the game, how to play the game faster, how to make the rotations better, that people don't waste time. So I think the biggest growth we had was the second split together. So it was like the first split in LEC last summer. And then we kind of all realized that we are still bad and we have to improve a lot. And then, I think my experience helped a lot just to... I feel like when I didn't play and on like the highest level for half a year, a lot of stuff in the game already changed. Like when the top LEC teams scream with each other, it's a bit different than to match against them again, because the playstyle changes a little bit. So I think you have to pick up on that again. And then, right now I think everyone is kind of smart for my team, and we just try to help each other as much,
You might not know this, Veteran, because it might be before your time, but like the second ever episode of Summoning Insight in like spring of 2014 was when VandeR was just in the LEC. It was EULCS back then, obviously, with that Roccat team, the all Polish lineup. And if people don't remember this, right, that lineup in the first like 3 or 4 weeks was actually like ranked #1 in Europe. Like they were like winning loads of their games, even though famously they weren't even supposed to be in the EULCS. It was supposed to be NIP that was supposed to be in that spot. If you remember, they famously beat them in the promotion tournament, right?
Yeah.
And when they were in LEC, right, one of the things we did on the second ever episode is, because back then we didn't know what the podcast was going to be, so we thought like, different weeks it'll be different. So what we did was me and Monty went away, we watched all the games they'd played, and we presented it as though it was like a profile of the team, like which players are legit, who's doing what, who's doing this. And I will say, this is actually one I will actually brag about, because right back then, you can go back, watch the VOD, it'll be on YouTube. I said that the only only two players in this team that were legit was Jankos the jungler and VandeR the support. Now, at the time, everyone's going to lie now like they always do in League of Legends and go, I always started with those two. But they didn't, because at the time, everyone was going mental about Overpower in the mid lane because he played like every champion in the game or whatever. And then the other player was like, just because Selliver got loads of kills because he was playing like fucking Caitlyn or something, all these idiots were like, he's sick actually. His vein is good. It's like, he's not. It's like his support's way better than he is. What are you talking about? So I even said back then, I picked those two players. And then 2 years later, when they were in Roccat, but the one that had Nuke Dark and the international lineup where Yamato Cannon was still pretending, like, at the time he was pretending to be a coach. Now he's actually, he is a coach. There we go, we'll leave it at that. Right? At that point in time, I also got flamed because I made a tweet where I said that Jankos and VandeR are the Dandy and Matter of Europe. Now, everyone flamed me, and you'll appreciate this, Veteran, because they did that thing where what they do is, when you do an analogy, they don't go, well, key to understanding an analogy is I'd have to know what qualities he's comparing. No, they did that thing literally where they just tried to pretend I'd said that they were those people literally. And they were like, how are they? Yeah, you're saying they're the best support in jungle in the whole world. It's like, no, well, obviously not. And the whole reason I was contrasting them is because, first of all, they were both two players who were good at their roles. Secondly, they'd played together their whole careers. Thirdly, it was obviously a combo that worked together very well. And in theory, like, they didn't change the game like Dandy and Matter did, to be fair. But the reason why I feel vindicated is because, first of all, I always said the whole time Jankos was the best jungler. It's just he didn't win, so people will never give you that credit. They'll always say whoever the Fnatic guy is or the G2 guy. As you saw with Trick, like, all I'll say is, how do you like me now, everyone who said that Trick was way better? Are you enjoying that one? Is that one working out well for you? Suck my dick. And then in terms of VandeR, all I'm going to say is this. Listen, he went through some hard times when Forgiven was just basically using him as a human punching bag during every fucking game because he, like, missed one CS or something. But all you need to know now is he literally took a bunch of fucking National League level players, all literal nobodies, and now they're one of the best teams in Europe. What do you think that was? Coincidence? I don't think so.
Okay. Actually, my
It was a rant. It wasn't. There was no point to any of that, by the way. It was all just bragging and shit.
Oh yeah. Okay. So obviously you didn't mean it like that. I saw you saying this might have been before my time, so I might not know, as a bit of a call out. My first ever article was actually on that lineup.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. And I can add some knowledge context to your comparison of Dandy Matter. Because I actually talked with VandeR Jankos about their time on that team because I was so interested in it. Again, it was on my first articles and something else that we'll touch on. And actually, the way that they were coached on that team by Veggie, who you may have heard me praise beforehand.
I've actually heard good things about him from people around the scene, yeah.
Veggie was addicted to VODs of only one team, and they basically spent hours going over those VODs trying to imitate that one team. And guess what that one team was?
There we go. Samsung Ozone, obviously, yeah. And they played all the same
Samsung
champs
White,
as well, by the way. Fucking Thresh. I mean, it's the same team.
So
Thresh,
Samsung White, right?
Hylissang.
Yeah, Samsung White. Yeah.
I mean that's kind of true what Veteran said. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was no coincidence that they looked like Dandy Matter. They were actually trying to ape those two players. And on the knowledge thing on back then, I was a complete random back then. So obviously you probably don't know I was active in the scene. I literally had like 2K Twitter followers and all this kind of shit back then. But when you did your Roccat won the off-season thing, I actually criticized you on that because I thought SK had won the off-season. And on the basis that Overpower was so terrible that he wouldn't be able to do anything on top lane.
You weren't wrong about that. But,
yeah,
you know.
so the rest of it wasn't enough. Yeah, but when I did my epilogue on that Roccat thing, because I did like epilogue articles after all of them got knocked out, I always used to open my articles with a quote of someone talking about the team. So I opened it with your final lines on your Roccat won the off-season
there you go.
because I was still trying to shove in on them. But yeah, they were actually the first team that I wrote about because I've always thought the tragedy of their team was that when they finally worked out how to make up for the massive flaws on their team that you correctly identified, like top, mid, and AD carry were not that good. When in the Fnatic series, they actually genuinely figured out how to make up for all the flaws in their team, which is something that Veggie became very good at on the subsequent teams he was on. They disbanded. Right. And then I saw the tragedy with the new one that you claimed had won the off-season. I saw the tragedy on that is that also, again, when they'd finally figured out how to make that team work and took Origin to 5 games, they disbanded. So I did like an analogy in that regard. It was always really interesting how the previous teams VandeR was on, it always seemed like they peaked super heavily towards the end. But obviously they'd struggled so much before then that they was already playing from the back foot. But they took Origin to 5 games. That was the Origin that beat LGD when they went to Worlds,
yes.
Right? They were very close to qualifying there, and if they had played at the form they had at the end there early on in the split, they probably make it to Worlds. And same thing with the Roccat that VandeR was previously on. So I think VandeR's always like being a guy. VandeR's been very close, like 1 game off, basically, or 2 games off, you could say, being a guy who's been at Worlds 3 times at this point. Right, like he's always had the potential there, and obviously now Jankos is on like that G2 lineup, and you can see how good VandeR is because, like you said, he's just brought up a bunch of nobodies to being one of the best teams. Obviously, nobodies with potential, but you know, yeah. I mean, but you expect these kinds of teams to take a bit longer than the one split you had last season to show that, right? Like you already beat out the team in a best of 5 that actually did make it to Worlds, right? Like you really had the potential to do it again last split, but now you have the full season, VandeR, and you're hitting the ground running here, so you'll probably do it. You'll probably do it this season. Rogue are like the front runners to be the 3rd place.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm kind of surprised because the league is quite more competitive than I expected coming to the league. Like Mad Lions are pretty good, actually, I think. They're a strong team. Misfits, I think they're not that strong, but they win somehow. So I'm not.
I mean, I think they'll scale off, like Vitality last year, right? Like they had something that works really well right now, but I think your team has more potential.
You know, Veteran, what I couldn't handle in that episode with Thebervin, but the problem is, I've realised the mistake we made on that episode, mate, was when he was flaming everyone else. We didn't just say, well, what your fucking teammates? Like, look at the bottom half of your map. Why are you talking shit? Like, because he was mad flaming like Origin and stuff. So they had like, you know, like they have 2 good players or whatever. It's like, how many does your team have? 1.5. What are you talking about?
I mean, they're top. I think both their side lanes have like massive issues, right? I think both top and AD carry are pretty bad. I don't think Dan. Yeah, on Misfits.
Yeah, that's why I say 1.5. The 1 is Thebervin and the half is Razork when he's just smurfing every other week. You know, there's the 1.5 players that are good.
I have to stand up for Denick on that one, especially if we're on like a support episode. I think Denick's been playing really well.
Fair enough.
Yeah, given that he's kind of has like a wool.
It's hard to tell when you've got a bad ADC. That's the problem.
Yeah. Go on, VandeR. Sorry, I like kind of.
Yeah, what do you think about Misfits, mate?
I think Misfits, their jungle is quite aggressive. He contributes a lot in the games, and it actually often works. I'm not sure, for example, game against Mad Lions, he like got 3 ganks off successful through the wards, so then they got like 3-0 and they snowballed really hard. Then he was called like that he's a god on Sejuani, but I mean, you know, he just was ganking through the wards. And
they played very good with Echo, though, I think.
I actually think, yeah, their top is pretty good, and mid jungle are decent. That's what I think. Right.
You think Misfits top is pretty good?
Yeah, I think the top side is like their strong point. And
you have to remember he plays with Finn, so
pretty good.
You know, comparisons can be drawn.
I think Finn's really good. Okay, I think Finn is like 2 tiers above Dan. I think
that's not relevant. I didn't say the level. I'm saying comparisons could be drawn. I could see how he could like things about Finn that he would think were similar in Dan.
Just kind of like the feeling you play against the team, right? Who gives you troubles in the games, or when I see them play on stage, who in my opinion performs better well. I would say their best player is their top lane, from my opinion.
VandeR, did they still do that thing in LEC? I know the answer is going to be yes, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do they still do that thing where the top teams only practice with each other, and then if you're at the bottom of the table, like they don't scrim you or whatever?
Usually, yeah. It depends on the week, because let's say G2 is going to play Fnatic and I don't know, Origin. Let's say this is your top 3, right? Then they will not scrim them this week, obviously.
Right.
So then they're going to go deeper in the pool of teams they're going to play against. But usually all the best teams just try to scrim other best teams, and once in a while they will try to have some variation. So they think, oh, this Excel team is also pretty good. We might give them one block and see how it goes, right? So
does Rogue get to scrim the top teams then?
Usually we scrim top teams, yeah. Like OG, Fnatic, G2, Mad Lions. I would say this like top 5 in my opinion, right? And most of the time we scrim them, but we also scrim like Vitality. Last week we scrimmed like 2 days against Schalke as well. So it's I think G2 and Fnatic are always gonna scrim each other when they can, and then all the teams get the rest, right?
Yeah.
Are you only playing shit teams, Steeelback?
I mean, actually, I think that we're having like decent scrims, but obviously, like, we're not playing with like top teams. I mean, actually, we played a good team this week, and we played Rogue too, and I don't know. I think actually we're having pretty good scrims for our current ranking.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't mean it to sound like, he didn't mean the phrasing to sound like, you know, he played a good team and then he also played Rogue. Like, he wasn't trying to actually BM there. That was purely just the way the sentence came together. We understand what you mean, Steeelback. It's all right.
What were you saying, VandeR? Last year, the Spring split and Rogue was like 0-10 when I was coming in the team for like 3 weeks to try to help them a bit. Then actually no LEC teams wanted to scrim us except Excel. That was also like 0-10 or 1-9 and Turkish teams. So last year, for example, we were totally blocked, you know, by the better teams. So if someone thinks you are like trolling in the scrims and you just play bad, they will not scream you.
Yeah. Right, since we're doing the support episode, let's just do some of the big names to see what people think, right? So a player I want to ask about this year is Hylissang, because last year, like, I actually thought he absolutely could have been like MVP of some of those splits. Like, what a fucking monster he was at times. But the problem is, Veteran, as much as you love him, like, this year he has had some fucking bad games.
Yeah, he's had some
at least.
I mean, there have been moments where it's like maybe he's just disrespecting these guys so hard. Like, I don't understand why he doesn't just move into Fog of War and Nautilus when he's on like 200 HP and he just hovers around trying to find the hook and Zoe one-shots him, right? It's like, oh, so can kill me on 200 HP, brilliant. Like, he's had some bangers this year for sure. Like the last game that they played, actually, even though obviously they beat Origin, honestly their bot lane was running it down, and most of the way that their bot lane was running it down was that Hylissang thought that he had like a really good engage, and Reckless actually follows him instead of what Upset does, which is when Destiny thinks he has a good engage and he doesn't, Upset just like fucks off and it's like, you're on your own here. Like, Reckless seemed to stick around and try to make it work. Like, I honestly had to put any deficits they had in that game on Hylissang. Like, he does look like we're getting like the hilly int that a lot of people talk about on a very consistent basis right now, and I can't really think why, because a lot of it just seems it's not just like he's out of focus or he's not playing mechanically well. It seems like he doesn't even understand what his role on certain compositions should be. Right, like the VandeR game that Fnatic played against G2, he simply has to stick around on top of the VandeR and peel for him. But every single time that VandeR was zoning people on the cage, he would think, "Oh, now I should just fucking hook in, get blown up, and then shockingly they can come all in on us now because even though we had complete control of here, now we just have a numbers disadvantage, and then obviously I'm off the map." Like, decisions like this seem like he doesn't quite understand what's going on, and that's much more than just losing focus, right? Like, something's clear clearly going wrong there.
Yes.
And it isn't the Hylissang that we saw beforehand, where last year was just carrying the whole map.
When people said Hilly in last year, like that, they were just being too stupid there. Like, if you're a playmaker like he is, you're going to have times where you look stupid and die. That's just a byproduct of making plays. As a player, it didn't work. But the difference is, the ones you're seeing this year, some of them are just inexplicable.
Yeah,
it's like you just walk into the fog of war and just die. Like, what?
You know, like this, like I'm not a psychologist, right? Like I'm just clarifying, I'm not a psychologist. But maybe last year he felt the pressure of having to carry the whole fucking map, right? Because Broxah was a very one-dimensional jungler, as Team Liquid and all of Broxah's fans are finding out right now. And Hylissang felt the pressure of having to both set up a good wave state bot and gank mid, and then transfer that into top, or transfer that back to bot, or whatever the fuck they were doing. He felt the pressure then. He probably feels like that's not his role in the team now, because Selfmade is more of a human jungler, and he moves more towards the role that Mickey X had in the team, where he still plays the map, but he plays the map within certain windows and doesn't play as aggro as he did before. And maybe in this, like, because he doesn't have that kind of direction, there are now a lot more instances where he's kind of brain AFK, because he isn't already thinking, I have to be doing this because the whole team depends on it, right? Like, because he loses direction in one sense, he just hasn't replaced it in any other sense. And so you get all these moments where he just is out of focus, right? It might be.
That's one theory. Here's another theory. His coach, Smithy, just said, I'm going to teach you how to play how I played last year.
Okay.
He taught him the Mythy in. He's already picked it. You tell you what, he's a fast fucking learner, Veteran. You've got to give him He'll probably be coach of XL next year himself.
I think he I mean, just playing against him is like passive. So even if he should be playing passive, he'll try to play aggressive and outplay you in a way, and that's often when he dies.
Yeah.
He also is the guy who loves like setup vision and be the one to like set up deep wards for TBs and stuff like this, which sometimes you just cannot do it. It depends where people are on the map. But he kind of still tries to, and he also gets caught. And I think he also has a thing on like champions, that some champions he plays like godlike tier, like Rakan or Pyke, and that's what he was playing last year all the time. And then he has champions like Nautilus that he can play them well, but most of the time he will just keep dying on them, right? So
yeah,
I think he's really good on. He's like when he can just play aggressive and make plays, then he'll be like the best support you can take for your team. But if you need someone to play a bit slower, then probably not. You know.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at him playing, and I also played with him Unicorn, and I think he feels very comfortable when he can play aggressive and that he can make plays. Then it snowballs. You know, when he plays good, then he will play good the whole game. But I think that when something goes wrong about the move that he's doing, he wants to make up for it. So he's gonna go even more aggressive on the next and try to make up for the last bad move, and then he keeps on going. That's what I feel. And when he's on a good good move spree, I would call it, then it works. But yeah,
that makes me really. That makes me really worried for Fnatic.
It's also like when we scream Fnatic, sometimes when you play against Hill and you see what he does, you like just like laugh because it's like so bad. But sometimes it's like when he plays like good, you can't do anything. You know, he just kills you in lane. He will go mid. He will kill your mid laner. Then he'll just go behind you, like lane again between the towers. You know. So yeah, I feel like it's just him and Buipo a little bit are like the dangerous duo. That's what we call them in Rome. Like they either carry the game or they're gonna end the game, you know. And you don't let them go silent together, because when Buipo and Hylissang go silent together, then
there you go.
Spicy things can happen.
Yeah, the question is just which team they're going to be the MVP for. It's going to be one. It's going to be one team. We'll see which one it is, though. I wanted to know, Veteran. Yeah, go on.
Because like on that, I've been saying should be really good for Fnatic, right? Because all of these ridiculously tanky champions are back. It's like Nemesis Wet Dream. He doesn't have to change his pool at all unless the thing is completely handless. It's Whippo's Wet Dream because he loves playing counters to tanks as well as playing these tanky champions himself. Selfmade, there's not as much priority on him ganking too much anymore. And Reckless is going to be sat there with like 4 concrete blocks and him, right? But if Hylissang maintains this kind of play style in a meta where you're more likely to have to play slow, then it's really not going to benefit him of everyone in Fnatic. So the issues we've seen already are probably going to be exacerbated on 10-4 relative to Hilly. I think for everyone else, it kind of helps them. But for Hilly, maybe it could actually be a pretty bad patch for him.
Although I will say, I actually think in general, like the Nemesis angle, I like that one. And Reckless, obviously, it makes sense for them, the patch. But I think Hylissang and Whippo are going to have issues, mate. Consider on the last episode I did with I Will Dominate of the Crackdown show that we do, and we had Whippo on there. He spent like at least 10 minutes explaining why he actually thinks that like Aatrox versus Ornn is a winning matchup for Aatrox. Now, I don't know almost anyone else in the whole world who'd say that. Now, I thought it was a very interesting angle. Like, really, it was more about like what you think of the champion is doing and how you want to play the lane out and stuff. Like, he did say it's not going to like 1v9 the game later in the team fight, etc. But like, I don't really want to hear my top laner like, yeah, I don't really fancy that Ornn champion right now if we're going in the current meta we're in now.
Okay, but there are two champions that he does play that go really well into it, that fit in the tanky meta. Like, he loves Shen, he loves Zac. Zac's really good into it. He doesn't even have to win lane with Zac. He can get like bodied by Finn all fucking lane and then just roam. Yeah, and then he can just roam around and still 1v9. So it really doesn't matter, right? Like, these kinds of champions, if he tends towards them, he's really fine. I think we'll see him tend away from Aatrox just because it won't be as good in the composition where they're going like farming junglers. We should see shit like Talia Kindred come back, tankier junglers like Zac can be flexed into that. I don't think he'll go stuff like Aatrox then. Maybe he does. I actually don't disagree with him on Aatrox versus Ornn, by the way. But I do still think the patch is kind of his wet dream because so many of the champions you're going to see top get countered by Singed as well, and they've already bought out.
They nerfed Singed though.
Well, okay, win rate for Singed actually went up when they nerfed just because the meta is so good for him right now.
And about Aatrox into Ornn, I think when people played Ornn top specifically, then I think it was a decent answer into it because you had a lot of side pressure, and then in team fights, it's not that easy for Ornn team to just engage and go because Aatrox will keep pushing and flanking you from a side. So you can't really overcommit on other people with Ornn because if Aatrox gets on your backline, he will kill everyone. And he, like, free item spike, Aatrox is super strong. But
he wins
now
like,
just play on mid, and this is like this is the problem of this champion, that is just too strong mid. I think you can flex
I
it
agree.
easily.
I agree on that.
The question I was going to ask you earlier, Veteran, because I thought it was an interesting one, is even though I joked there about Mithy being an Origin and then going over to Fnatic, like if you look at the way Fnatic plays this year, it's nothing like the way that OG team played when Mithy was in it. Like I feel like that makes me feel like Mithy didn't have as much impact on that Origin team as we speculated, because if anything, it looks more like the Gyoto DNA is what remained in that team as opposed to... Like you would have thought Fnatic would be the team that's playing scaling now and playing smart, and also they don't really do any of that shit. They still just put the gas to the pedal, right?
I think it's mainly Nuke philosophy and how to play the game. I was also in Schalke playing with Nuke, and if you watch how he played in Schalke, it was a lot of times just like that, how Origin played last year and right now. And Fnatic, I mean, you have Whippo, Hylissang, like self-made.
You can't play slow.
You will not make them play scaling, you know. I mean, they can play scaling with Zac, but he would keep jumping all the time anyways. With him. So I think mainly Nuke and Gilot are like good friends, and they work together for like third division right now. So that's for sure they're like the core of the team. And Upset also likes to like fit in this scenario, like how to play the game, this scheme.
Any thoughts, Veteran?
On that specifically, I mean, I think if I'm worried about players on that team, so obviously you guys have mentioned Hylissang Whippo a ton. Selfmade has basically only played ganking style junglers. Like we've seen him play Karthus in SK, but we haven't really seen them output those like Origin kinds of compositions now, where Origin went like Gangplank or mid Karthus. They haven't really been prioritizing that yet. So I would maybe say that I'm worried about him, but I have seen him play those champions. It's just that quite clearly, like you guys say, they tend a bit more towards aggression right now, outside of that guy in the mid lane who'd rather pick Veigar and scale into playing around neutral objectives against G2, right? Like obviously he's a bit of an odd one out there, but now all of them have champions that are good with that kind of play that they can play. So
that's what I don't get, Veteran, is like obviously there is another former National League level synergy, right? The jungle and mid, Selfmade and Nemesis, like everyone was saying when they get back together, like they are totally contrasting pieces. That's what I don't understand.
They've grown away from each other. Like we were talking about this last year on Elitists United, that like they're not going to just randomly become the duo they were beforehand, because the duo they were beforehand was predicated on Nemesis just AFK pushing mid lane permanently on shit like Azir and Ryze, completely uncontested. It was above most people on those champions in the ERLs anyway, and then Selfmade would just permanently invade. But obviously, Nemesis, as he has developed in the last year and a half, he isn't that kind of player anymore. That isn't how he views how the game should be played anymore. Like Perk still kind of views it that way, but Nemesis definitely doesn't view it that way. They've grown apart. You know, like it's like they got divorced, using a little like early analogy, right? Like they kind of got divorced,
Sure.
and they've just grown monster apart. They have different things. They like different tastes. The moment that Nemesis left Selfmade, he got like his tongue cut into that weird shit because he always wanted all that wild shit, and he was just playing the good wife until then, right? Like they putting them back together again was never going to give you the scenario you had beforehand, and the scenario you had beforehand also largely only occurred because Nemesis was a mute on Mad Lions, and now we know for a fact he's vocal as fuck. He's not making the decisions in game, but he's permanently talking, which he had to do to make up for the fact that Broxer doesn't talk at all, which Team Liquid is also discovering right now. No refund, Steve. So,
but I also think like this. Let's say you are a jungler, right? And you play in Mad Lions, and your laners are Verlip, Nemesis, and then Falco and Crownshot, right? Then you will just play with Nemesis, and then you go to Fnatic, and your lanes are Buipo, Reckless Hylissang, and Nemesis. Now you can play with any lane you want, and probably Nemesis like the most passive one, as you said, and he actually likes to play scaling.
Yeah,
it was like son of LS, so that's what he does, right? That's what LS tells you to do. So yeah.
And Selfmade figured out like every other jungler, you just go top. Problem solved.
I mean, it's not like Selfmade loved, or like, I mean, he sure liked playing with Nemesis, but Nemesis was like the best player in his team, and he had to carry back. But
Makes sense.
now he doesn't have to carry, anymore. I feel like he can sometimes, but it's not like there's only one player who can do it now.
There was a period on that Mad Lions team where they kind of lived and died by whether Crownshot was doing really, really well that game, but their support left a ton to be desired. So that kind of keeps them moving.
I mean, Crownshot was pretty good as well. Back then, but yeah, Falco was probably not.
Is Fnatic the best team in LEC?
No.
Who's the best then?
I mean, I still think G2 is the best, even though
No. Wait a second.
I'm not allowed to say this. I'm not allowed to say this.
Because the fact that VandeR said who is implies he does think Fnatic's the best. So go on, make a kiss.
I'm not sure.
It's
so hard to say right now. I feel like, I just feel it's so close. I think if G2 gets their shit together, they are the best team again. But I watched their games against Mad Lions last week, and they honestly had like a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes on the map. That they were actually a team that was always like the weak side was always rotating mid to help get the push and then walk to strong side. But they were just like playing really bad on the map, and so they like lost some team fights, and it was just not.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I don't know, since I'm watching G2, the split is since the wall swap. I mean, the beginning was really good, right? Perks was like carrying hard. Again, they were winning games, but ever since like Cap started die a lot, then it feels like the whole team lost confidence, and as you said, like they're doing a lot of mistakes that they were never doing before. So I'm not sure if it's because of the wall swap or because of just those few losses that they had, and then they lost confidence. But it feels weird that a team like that went towards the final can lose confidence on like only a few losses in LEC.
I think they have some problem right now, and if they don't fix it, they will be just like top 3. But if they fix it, they will be top 1 again. So hard to say. I would say last 2 weeks, Fnatic was the best team.
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
It's quite hard to say. In general, it's just best of ones, and then like we scrim them, let's say one day a week. So it's really hard to say who is the best. That's why most of the times playoffs show true strengths of the teams, right?
I mean,
here's a wild stat for you, Veteran.
Yeah.
In the last 4 games, Perks has died more than he's got kills.
Really? That's actually really impressive. Wait, really? Wait, wasn't he just randomly solo killing Mickey in the Ornn v Vayne thing? Wait.
Even in the Ornn game, he died. Like, let's have a look. He played
He has a lot of assists though, for sure, as on, you know.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. It might.
I mean, it's not like okay, this guy.
On
has,
Silas, he got shit on. He was 2-5-2, and that was against Mad Lions.
Yeah, who I wanted to bring up, like, if we want to say that, like, Fnatic G2 are still top 2, or that there is a top 3 there, Mad Lions have beaten both Fnatic and G2 in the last 2 weeks, right? And then they monster ran down their draft versus Origin, so I don't think they had any chance of winning that game whatsoever. And then I think Shadow and Humanoid just ran it down in-game versus Misfits. Like, Shadow's early path gave me cancer, and then Humanoid decided that it was the absolute best time to lean bot side for no real reason on the push on mid. And then the whole game just snowballed off of that shit, right? But I do think Mad Lions also benefit on the next patch, because it's going to be a pretty tanky meta, and they have a Kindred main on their squad. Like, we haven't actually seen Shadow on his comfortable champions yet. A lot of people have commented that his Lee Sin seems mechanically really good, but if you even watch his pathing, he doesn't really seem that comfortable on playing champions with early game impact, even if he is finding windows in mid game. I think the next patch benefits his playstyle incredibly well. I think Kazi has been the best part of their roster. I think everyone will agree on that. Obviously, when you put him up against Caps, you're now putting up against like a BT AD carry the way that Caps is going. But they built that composition against G2 around the idea that he can execute Kalista versus Sedge Nautilus, right? And it worked out. And he's going to really love the beefiness on the next patch. So I think that they have the options here. And Aroma's played weak side like his entire fucking life and played these kinds of champions his entire life. So I really do think the potential is there for Mad Lions maybe to look like the best team in the next 2 weeks. On this patch where they're not playing at their optimal, they've already taken out the other top 2 teams. I don't think we've seen a team
they're a bit inconsistent, but I agree with you that they can beat anyone and they can lose to anyone. They're quite inconsistent. Let's say like Rogue, we probably are like not favorites against Fnatic, right, or G2, but we're gonna beat the worst teams. But I feel like Mad Lions is the opposite, right? They're gonna sometimes win against better teams, lose against worse teams. That's kind of how they play. I think all of them are like really good. Maybe the top player is a little bit worse than the rest of the squad, but he's not bad, you know.
I mean, yeah, I feel that when I watch Mad Lions, the mid laner is playing kind of like conf. You know? Some games he will play like very aggressive, and he will get so many kills and so many fights like bait. Like he's gonna bait a lot of things, and some games he's just gonna die, and then the whole game goes like really hard, you know. That's where I feel. That's why I feel like the team is kind of like consistent.
I mean, we screamed them today, you know. Every game was like 15 minutes. It's either we get stomped or they get stomped. Kind of.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I am worried with that team when they go to the playoffs, because that's the problem with having rookies. Even if the skill's there now, like the experience of knowing how to play in the playoffs and stuff, like the last thing you want, VandeR, is to bring a whole bunch of rookies up, have one really big result, and then shit the bed completely and not go to Worlds. So, sorry, I went too far into an example. I'm not very specific there. I sounded like I was talking very vaguely, didn't I? You know, Schalke, right? That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. So, just referring to last year where everyone was on the hype train, VandeR. It's like that meme of that girl who's like, everyone here was pulling for you. When you beat Splice, everyone's like, they're the truth. They're actually going to be the third best team. And then you let fucking Schalke, which listen, I know now their lineup's even worse, but that lineup had no business ever doing anything. That one with Upset and fucking Abedage, like, there's no way that team should have beat you. Come on.
This best of 5 was quite a bad memory. I mean, I think the third game should have won. I mean, the game was kind of, but unfortunate events happened. And then fourth game, we just kind of played worse. I think also one game we completely entered the draft when we like blind picked Zach. That was a crazy idea from the jungle.
They had to get experience, man. Too many rookies. I actually have a question though, which is right. So everyone saw this spicy comment that fucking Larson said, where he said he thinks he's better than Bjergsen. Okay. Is Larson actually like? Was that just for the press? Is he actually like a really confident person?
Yeah, he's confident. He has strong opinions, and I always know what champions he thinks are the best and how he wants to play the game. I sometimes don't agree with him. Let's say we gave Ornn and we didn't pick Ornn, so that's an example, right? But he's a confident person, yeah.
Okay. See, the obvious joke there, Veteran, is, well, yeah, no shit. Like, why didn't you listen to me? I told you like Froggen.
I also don't think these comments like against Bjergsen are ever going to be spicy anymore. Like, is that really a controversial statement now?
It was to plebs just because they're like, but the name Bjergsen, like, they can't get past the name value, can they? That's half the problem.
He watched a lot of Bjergsen Pro views. I mean, that's in general, everyone from our team watches a lot of Pro views, and I saw. I think Larsen was his fan or something in the past. So when the Pro views got implemented, he was like watching every game of Bjergsen like 5 times. And then,
was he worse now or something?
He just suddenly like came to me like, I don't know, dude, it's like Bjergsen's not that good anymore, you know. I think he just, he for sure rated him very high in the past, and then when he sees the Pro view, maybe he's not that good anymore for him, you know, in his eyes.
Okay. Never watch the Pro views of your heroes, kids.
If you're watching a lot of Pro views,
I guess, yeah.
We should ask about some of the other supports then. Like, if we're going to flame G2 and then to a minor degree Fnatic, we've got to ask about, like, have you watched Mickey X's Pro views, VandeR?
Yeah, I did.
What's he like this year?
Well, I mean, it's also like the Nautilus, he didn't play that well, but in general, I think Mickey is the person who can play like any champ. It's not like he's champion limited to Hylissang is a little bit champion limited. I'm not saying he can play only 2 champs. He in general is a really good player as well. Mickey X can play like more champions and more styles. And yeah, I think it's maybe a bit harder with Caps, how like a new player to play with, and he made a lot of mistakes as well. Caps, like being too aggressive. I'm not sure. I think both Mickey and Hylissang don't play as good as they did last year in general, but they still are really good. You know?
What do you think?
Like, last year when I played Summer Scrims, it was really hard for me to play against them, right? Yeah. And now it's not hard. I mean, it's a challenge always. It's not easy, but it's not like it's not hard. You know, I can just play my game.
Maybe you got better.
Maybe both. You know, I mean, but it's like if everyone else gets better and they are the same, then they are worse.
Well. I mean, I actually kind of agree with you. I think they were better last year. I don't know if it's the meta that changed but yeah, definitely. I'm watching Pro View of both supports, and I think that Mickey X is quite good. He has good ideas during game. I mean, his first weeks were not that good, I think, especially on Nautilus, but it feels like every support just in champ. So I don't know if he's the champ or actually the player, but I think he played very good the last days individually. But yeah, his AD is like kind of new, so it's hard to play with a new AD. Even me, when I swapped from LDLC when I was with Com to the academy in Vitality, it was really hard to like do the same plays when you have a new AD. It actually matters a lot, and I think that Hylissang is playing really coin flip right now, but I hope that he will get more regular, I would say, and go back on his old level, because I think he can be very, very strong.
It's nice that you wish him the best, dude.
I know, it's way too nice, isn't it? You should say, no, I hope you stay shit forever and then I'm better than you. And I get your job and you get fired and I get your girlfriend as well. There you go. Be confident, believe in yourself. As an inspirational message to me. It sounded like Flame, but
he gets better and then I get better because he gets better,
See, this guy's just on some enlightenment tip. If we all just get better together, we just improve the whole world, the whole species, and we become like fucking superhuman or something.
But that's the difference. Like you're cocky for him, but he's just confident because he knows there's no way Hylissang can reach a level where Steeelback won't be able to beat him. So by all means, keep getting better. That means I'll just go further in strength. I'll just keep beating it. I'll beat you when you're at your very best, and they'll have to take me. Like if they fire you when you're at your worst, they might regret that in the future. So I want you to be at your best when I embarrass you. That's the real confident take, man.
In a way, that's the ultimate Flame. Is to be like, I want you to beat your absolute best, so I can beat the dog shit out of you. That's pretty sick, actually. Yeah, pretty good. I like that. Right, here's the question though, Veteran, is, based on what we've seen now, the fact that even Perks has had some dodgy games, if G2 doesn't win this split, they're 100% reversing that role swap, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
It's got to be a pretty high percentage chance at this point in time.
Yeah, like we've discussed this a few times, and I think there's like it was basically just done for mental. They did say that like they will swap it back if it doesn't work out. There's no way you can think it's working out. Like Caps just doesn't look comfortable on these champions. Like it's not even that he's in the learning process of them. He doesn't even seem comfortable within the learning process of these champions themselves. And it's really obvious to anyone who's even just watching Mickey's pro view and not his. Like I mean, he's not Perks. Right, he's not Perks when it comes to AD carry. But that being said, Perks isn't him when it comes to mid. Perks is really strong around the map. Perks is really strong as a team leader. But there are champions where Caps is just mechanically better than Perks. There's actually no denying that. So it's not the worst thing in the world that Caps' playstyle that is so strong in mid doesn't translate into AD carry, because I think it makes him such a unique mid lane in a lot of circumstances. But yeah, I really do think that they should swap back for sure.
Well, I think Caps is pretty good in general. I mean, Caps is like a really good player in general. He's for sure like top 3 players in general in the league. Doesn't matter like what role you put him.
Wait a minute. VandeR, what the fuck does that mean? Because when you say in general and then you say it doesn't matter what role, you've just said he's a top 3 player right now.
I mean, his problem is just a bit of like role. What role allows you to do in certain situations, you know? So it's like he plays a really, really good game. Like let's say a MF game against Mad Lions. I was watching how he played. He played like really good in general, and then he makes like one mistake in team fight because MF is like pretty slow champion in general, and then it's like it's way harder for them to play right now, you know. And it's also I feel like the whole squad plays a little bit worse. That's why they start. I mean, it's like G2. We are not used to them losing, right? So if they drop some games, people kind of panic and point fingers, you know, in a way. But I don't think Caps is like B tier ID. He's for sure mechanically he's like top 1 or top 2. But he makes just those like rookie mistakes sometimes. And I think he might fix it.
I'll just say this comment. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to remind viewers that VandeR did play with Wu like last year. Right, took a little drink of water, now we move on. So no problem. Right. Nothing more needs to be said, right? So I'm sure compared to Wu, it probably does look pretty good. He's got potential, could do something. He only dies the one time every now and then. That's pretty cool. You know, not like every 5 minutes.
Just players, you know, they play against Caps. It's different when you play against someone else, you know. That's all.
Are you sure that's Caps? Are you sure it's Caps and not Mickey?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
I have to say, though, that's the problem, Veteran, is like this is also one of the things that makes a game like League of Legends, where every game is this entire entity that's really hard to break down into isolated sections. Whereas obviously my game I come from, Counter-Strike, has distinct rounds that you can look at where you reset the initial conditions. One of the things I do find very tough about evaluating the G2 bot lane is it does also, with the eye test, look like Mickey X is worse. So I can't really do the unfair comparison of like if Mickey X had stayed identical from last year, I would just say inarguably Perks was better, because I used to think it was Mickey X carrying Perks, but you can't do that to Caps. Like, it just doesn't work. But then the problem is it's a totally different meta of champions. I don't really know if you can even use that kind of analysis.
I mean, I think with Mickey X, a lot of the things that made him so highly rated last year, he's still able to demonstrate. And Caps isn't able to demonstrate any of those things. And there are people in the role of AD carry who are able to demonstrate carry potential that Caps is yet to show. The only champion Caps looked strong on was Senna, which is also the easiest champion. I could play Senna. Like, that's how fucking easy it is. Yeah, like it's nuts, right? But he doesn't even seem comfortable playing around the ranges of enemy supports. Like again, when they started banning Rakan this weekend, I say again, we talked last week about how it looked to me like he literally can't play around Rakan W. Like, he literally doesn't seem to understand the ranges of it. And then this week they banned Rakan twice. Obviously they weren't the only team to ban Rakan. They were the only team to ban Rakan twice, irrespective.
On blue side though, right? Or
no, both sides they did it, blue and red. They're the only team to ban it both times. Every other team did not ban it both times. There were a couple of teams that did ban it, but they were the only team to ban it both times. I'm not saying that that it was specifically targeted at them. They probably feel the issues of Rakan more than most people, and they weren't even playing against Rakan every time. There are other AD carries that have shown carry potential that do play around ranges properly, but that aren't as good as the top two, which are, in my opinion, reckless upset. I'm pretty sure everyone at least here would agree on that. But for example, I'd have to put Kazi. Kazi's current state of performance definitely above Cap's current state of performance, especially on this weekend, where Kazi was directly carrying against Caps of all people, right? So I have to create an A tier for that, and then I have to put Caps in a B tier, right? To me, I think the idea that he is like top 3 in Europe in general is ludicrous. If I can name 2 that are definitely S tier in that role, and name people who should be above that role there, and they're the only 2 that kind of like transcend everyone right now is Alphari, where, by the way, Riot, you actually got the fucking mid-split MVP vote correct for once. Yes, Alphari is probably the best performing player so far, and Perks is also like one of the best performing players where it kind of transcends. I can't see putting Caps there, given that you'd have to argue for Reckless or Upset before him, right, into that position. And then there's all the other mid and top and
couple of details to note. One, there's no such thing as a mid-split MVP. Unless he has a trophy, there's no such thing that's just an award. What you really mean is update on how the MVP race is going. I don't even know why they would call it mid-split MVP. It doesn't even make any fucking sense at all, but whatever. I get the premise. Okay? I get the premise of what they were going for on that one. In terms of what VandeR said, like, actually his explanation makes more sense. It sounds weird because what he's basically saying is AD carry doesn't allow Caps to do the things that make him super good, but otherwise he's a top 3 player. But obviously, logically, then stop fucking playing AD carry, go play another role, play top player or something, then be a militant,
The problem is that he modified his statement towards the end to say that he's still a top 3 in his role, not just top 3 in general. He modified to say top 3 in his role, which is what I take issue with. He's a
wait a minute, absolutely.
If
you're watching all these pro views, if you're watching fucking Mickey X's pro view, Caps is in it doing all this stupid shit. Why are you watching that going, nah, he's still really good. I think he's... please play with me. Please play with me.
He makes some rookie mistakes, right? And he did them as well sometimes when he played mid. It's just... What I meant by like top 3 is how talented he is and how
like skill level or whatever. Sure.
How he's like really creative. He'll bring those new niche picks. And sadly, it's harder on ADC to bring it as well. It's kind of a mid or top specific.
Well, it's harder unless you've got this like really experienced Polish support. So what VandeR's actually saying is, listen, Caps, like, ditch the losers, that Perks guy. Come play with the winners. We've got the guys better than Bjergsen in our mid lane. Like, get over here, homie. Next year, Rogue Caps. That's the future.
I don't know.
No, okay. That was just me. That's true, Caps. Definitely not true. Let's ask actually about Hans Sama then. Obviously, himself formerly played with Mickey X. Not a particularly great lane that either of them want to remember, but they did happen one time. They did play together. Yeah, so, VandeR, what do you think about Hans Sama? Because the whole rep that he had from before was that he's a very quiet player and that he's, well, I mean, over the years he's improved. But what would you say about Hans Sama?
He's for sure not a quiet player. For a fact, I know that in a Misfits team, when they played with Alphari and Mickey, he was like the main shot caller of the team. He was like
everybody we've had who talked about that Misfits team, including people who are on it, has said that he was Silence the Grave.
I mean, I had the
competing rumors.
I saw some comms from the team, so I can confirm it 100% that he was one of the main shot callers in this team. And Alphari, I would say, they were like 2 main people that made this team work back then, in my eyes. And then I think he's really good in general. I think me and him made some mistakes this split. Like, we don't do our best right now, but I think he's really good in general. And I hope we will like fix the issues we have sometimes, and we can show it.
I also think Hans is A tier, by the way. Like,
I really enjoy playing with him. He's like it's really easy as well, and when he talks in the game, he always says like correct stuff as well. So his shot calling is pretty good actually. Like the just not shot calling, it's like a bit stupid word, I would say. It's just the vision of the game, like how he what like you're in the game in the moment, and what do you think is going to happen, and how you have to act in the game.
When he does
like good game read, good game read, exactly.
Like if he does talk, what he says to do next is generally going to be the correct thing, right? That's always really good and reliable to have. I always thought with Hans, they was really fucking good in lane, which is why when he was on that Mickey X squad that we alluded to beforehand, when the meta was like end in 20 minutes, they just ended in 20 minutes and they were like 11-0 at one point, right? Then when the meta shifted away from that, you had comms issues everywhere. And whenever we've talked to people from that Mystics lineup, including like coach, including his former support, all these guys, they all maintained that basically no one was shot calling on that team. Right? No one really knew how to do that outside of maybe Maxwell. So that's generally what we've heard. If he's talkative now, that's pretty good. Does he have to be talkative on your team? Or
I mean, I don't think he talks as much as he had to talk in Misfits right now, but I like when he talks. It's way easier for me to play when he gives some ideas and talks. It's I think everyone has to put some contribution, in the game, and especially on bot lane when you have like base timings and how to manage some waves. I feel like it's easy for carry most of the time because they see their gold and they kind of feel like the damage and how fast they can push waves. So I feel it's quite useful when they say some stuff. So yeah. And like how they manage the waves and talk about slow pushes and such.
Would you say that he leads the 2v2 or do you lead the 2v2?
I think we both. I think it like depends on champions most of the time. Sure. Let's say when I play like Nautilus and stuff, I will always like say when I want to fight, and I will look for a fight here and here. When he plays like Draven or something, he's gonna he's like telling me just to fight and like do some stuff all the time. When he plays Draven, he becomes like instant shot caller. That he like where to ward and where to base suddenly, which sometimes is a bit annoying. But I feel like it mainly depends on champions and who can. If I can do something right now, I will say it and try to do it. And if he can do something right now, he will say it and do it, right? It's not like one has to pull each other. Someone's like, oh, dude, you have to come here with me. Oh, dude, you can't. You have to stay here,
Right, if you're going to say that, bearing in mind, VandeR, the context of your career, the English phrase would be remiss. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you your thoughts on the whole Forgiven drama. Like, you're an outsider, but you used to play with him. You said before you were on the worst team at LEC. You stuck in there. You kept playing, tried to improve, etc. What do you think of this whole situation where? I mean, he presented that he quit. In reality, let's just be real right now. Like, he was benched and then he just quit because he was benched. Like, that's realistically what happened. Except he hasn't, in theory, quit. He's still on the roster. It's just only in his fucking dream imagination is he ever getting back in that team. But he really believes, because he's Forgiven, that it'd be Hitch to KO all over again. They'd do really badly and then they'd go, please come back. And then he'd come back like, finally, they fucking realised. Like, and then he'd come in and fucking go to Worlds or something in his dream world. Like, obviously, none of that's happening. But what are your thoughts on it, VandeR? Come on.
Well, I kind of saw this coming, to be honest, when they came the team, because I don't think Forgiven can work with players who are not like the best in the roles, and even if they are the best, it's still not that easy. It's also another problem is that like the limitations he like puts on himself right now. So he like doesn't like to play new champs. He doesn't like to play mages. He doesn't like to play like weird stuff like, I don't know, Garen Yumi or like whatever comes next, he hates this stuff. And also the wave management of his is kind of like 2016 still, when it changed a lot. So I just think because of those reasons, it's just not gonna work out, I think he just has to change his mindset. Yeah.
That's actually
he did it mechanically, but he just has to. He says that he does everything to win, but he actually doesn't, and he has to understand.
He doesn't even play the champions to fucking win, even though when there's like auto-win champions, he doesn't play them, so obviously you don't want to win, do you? That angle is so whack. Because Veteran, that's the part, actually, that is the most underwhelming thing about the Forgiven comeback. People like me and you staked our fucking reputations backing this guy, including the absolutely totally logical point I made, which is, well, why would he come back if he thought it was still 2016 and he could play that way in that champion pool? So I even said, of course, if he comes back, the only reason to come back is you've got a new mindset, you've got the beginner's mind from Zen, you're going to play the new champions, you're going to humble yourself. He did none of it. What the fuck? What was the point?
I actually legit thought he was going to, just because when he played on Origin for briefly, not the very brief time, but the time when it was in EU Masters, he actually was basically just spamming Kaisa non-stop for it, right? Like he was adapting to new champions. He played Zyra Khan. He played all that stuff at that point. But then when he came in this time, Aphelios is completely absent across all of his accounts, right? So he played Senna, all right, at the very least he picked it. And he could play some of the new champions, and you could still see that he can still play Xayah. Obviously it's not a Kai'Sa meta anymore, but Aphelios, like the meta, especially in the last weekend, was essentially defined by trading on for Aphelios or removing them from the game entirely, right? And he could never handshake that kind of trade if he kept playing. Inax already can. That's a massive thing not to have in your champ pool. That's way bigger than even back when me and VandeR were on a team with him and he wouldn't play Kalista. It's like even bigger than that because the meta is legit defined by this Aphelios.
He did pick it after like 7 months though, the Kalista.
Yes.
So if he stayed with Stalker, maybe like the end of summer split would play some Aphelios just to show that. I mean, when he picked Kalista, he just said, okay, I'm gonna show people I can play Kalista and I can play that Wars, you know. So just like a warning to Koreans.
There you go.
But
and
yeah,
he never picked it again.
Well, I played some scrims against like Xayah or Sivir or Lucian, and he's still actually good on those champs. Like I didn't expect he would be that good on those champs. You know, it's like play against like okay, he's actually pretty good still, but it's just like bad wave management, and it's a big risk. I also had like some offers coming to this season to play with Forgiven, but I just think it's like a huge risk to play with him just because how the meta is really weird right now. That you can just from week to week, people are really experimenting a lot, and even if there's some stuff is not actually the best to play, but it kind of surprises enemies. They're gonna make mistakes against it, and that's why it's worth to pick it up. And I think he's probably not the person who's willing to do it, you know.
Luckily, you had an excuse because that tweet he made, like 20,000 retweets, and I'll play with VandeR again, only got 7K, so you never even had to tell him.
Yeah, I see.
There you go. Because actually, you know what? Since you brought it up, I'll say this anyway. Here's another thing, Veteran, that is an angle. Because what people don't know, I'll just tell people right now, like obviously people like me and Veteran still talk to Forgiven. He doesn't get any of the things we're talking about. He is completely delusional. Like, the problem is, in the past, he wasn't delusional because he was that good. Yeah. Like, back then, I could even make the case, like, right, it doesn't matter if he doesn't get certain team play concepts, it's worth trying to make the other players in the team work around it because he's that fucking good. He's still in his mind. Like, he's now gone from I thought I was the best to like, well, I'm definitely not the problem, which is a very different statement already. Yeah. And then secondly, and this is the killer, right? When he thinks people like me and you are flaming him, homie, we're just the ones talking to you. I would just say this if I was you, Forgiven. Think of all the friends you have in the pro scene, all those pro players who on solo queue say you're good and duo queue with you, and then in your DMs say it wasn't your fault and they agree with you, and even they're supporting you in tweets. How come not a single one of those people wants to play with you, motherfucker? Not a single one of those guys was going to their org like, I don't care what the past is. Like, I'll do anything. Just bring this guy to our team. We'll win. None of them were doing that. They were all like, they're like those fuckers who were like, you know, when a girl who was like, great analogy. This is a straight fire analogy, by the way. This is like where some fucking super beta male is friends with a girl, and she's like, "Oh, you're such a sweet guy. Like, any woman would be happy to be with you." You're like, "Well, you're single at the moment." Listen, I think of you more as a brother. Like, you know, we're really good friends right now. But anyone else, though, like, you're really good looking. Like, yeah, exactly. Where the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? Like, put your money where your mouth is. Like, that's all that needs to be said. There wasn't any other offers, mate. These offers were garbage. That's why you end up in Schalke. That's why you had to literally take an offer where you play with Dreams. You're already a Korean here, and this guy doesn't play at all your style. And then secondly, you had to join a team that was almost fucking autofill jungle. Like, you didn't even have a jungler. You didn't, like, the idea that team would even say no to Memento is like, whoever's the GM of that team, kiss my ass. Who the fuck are you, mate? You think Gilius is better than fucking Memento? Get the fuck out of my face.
It feels really bad watching Memento play now because Memento's playing on AHG. And short background for everyone unfamiliar with AHG. AHG are a team that heavily invests in like retired LEC players and like really good LEC players, but never around mid. So you always have like a really good jungler or Gilius or a really good AD. Like right now they have with Freeze, for example, and now they have Memento on that team. They did actually manage to win today, but Zio and Scarface just aren't on the level of the people they're against, and Camilius is so bad if we're on the support episode, by the way. So like Memento is kind of struggling in like a regional league team, and he's trying to put on performances where people will be like, oh yeah, we should be picking him up onto LEC again, but he just never should have been kicked in the first place. Like the image Schalke have of his skill level at the time is ludicrous. I think he was better than Trick right up to the end. I didn't see Trick bring anything other than the fact that he was more of a slave to what Ignar wanted than Memento was. That Memento couldn't bring. I think Memento is the clear guy that they should have kept of all of the people that they had last time, given that they probably can't afford to keep Upset. And yeah, like the Memento thing is really tragic because I'm still definitely in his corner. Slight bias because I've worked with him in the past, but I'm still absolutely in his corner.
No, but there's the other thing. First of all, it just means you know him better as a player than other players. And then it's not like you'll big up every player you played with. And then secondly, the other angle on that one is he's another person where the Reddit narrative's just buried him. Like he's never going to come back from that.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has. Also, what I always say when people accuse me of like straight bias because I was playing with the guy, it's always like, no, I hired that guy because I thought he was good. It's not that I worked with the guy and therefore decided he must be good. It's the other way around. Like cause and effect is completely different.
Yeah, I think that. So I mean, I played with him, Rocket. I mean, we had jungler issues at the time. It was the Airwax. We had the problem with him, and we had to find a new jungle, and we got Memento. I was actually really surprised. Like he was really good mechanically, and he was really talking a lot. And for jungler at the time, I mean, I didn't have a jungle that was talking that much. He was actually quite positive also. So I really have good memories about that guy.
Okay. Right. Speaking of people that Veteran used to big up back in the day because they were on his team but still playing the LEC now, VandeR, what do you think of the bot lane of Excel? See how I did that? Straight fire. Go on then. Come on, VandeR, what do you think?
I mean, I'm going to play them this week, I think. So
it's important to know what you think then.
Yeah, I think Patrick is decent. I think Norskeren is like some of the worst half of the supports in the LEC. I mean, I think he people say he's like good mechanically, but honestly, it's like probably his biggest flaw that he's pretty bad mechanically. And,
Display is not.
For me, it was always quite easy to play against him. Like, I don't feel much pressure, or it's not hard in lane, or it's not. It's just easy compared to other players, you know. If you play one game against Norskeren, then you play against Hylissang next game, it's completely different.
But I think,
Go on.
Yeah, I think that Patrick is really good though. Mechanically, like I always like in solo queue, and I mean we didn't scrim them that much. I guess them only one time, so I didn't have the chance to play them as much as you. But he looked very strong mechanically, and actually when I played against him, he was doing things that like other ADC were not really doing.
Yeah, I have a really high opinion of Patrick. I thought Patrick would be the one between Patrick and Upset to like make the jump up to S tier, just because he's a much more aggressive version of Upset and he understands his limits a bit more than Upset does. Upset's never really like tested them in that way, and up until now, Upset always had this massive issue where he just into the mid section. But this split, he's gotten rid of that issue. I still think Patrick is mechanically really strong. I think he has one of the best understanding lane matchups, and I'm not gonna defend Norskeren from your attack on him here, because I actually do agree with you. I just went through like the entire list of supports, and yeah, he's not in the top 5 of supports right now for sure. I do think he got a bad reputation on Splice that was undeserved. I thought a lot of the go buttons that he pressed were just not capitalized on properly by Xerxes, who I think is always being an incredibly overrated jungler. So that would probably be my equivalent of Norskeren in a VandeR analogy there. But yeah, I mean, this split, he isn't on the upper end. Even some of the new guys we have coming in, like Kaiser, for example, looking at the list, I would rate above.
He's for sure better.
Yeah, like
I mean, it's also people who are gonna listen to it is like I said he's bad, but it's like bad for LEC standard, right? It's not like he's like bad in this top 10 players that play support right now, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely on the
not in general, you know.
I'd rate both of you above him, obviously, but I've rated VandeR super high for a while.
Also, I think, I mean, in League, it's kind of that like 3 or 4 weeks can often change a lot. Like the form of a player is also there, so that's why you can see some people like Caps maybe underperforms last 2 weeks, but he might smurf again, like in 2 weeks. You know?
Why has he gone back to the caps, like trying to defend caps again? He fucking loves caps, this guy.
It's a really good example right now.
Okay. You're right, in theory he could get better.
Form, you know?
Yeah, for
like
sure.
Some bad games. I just think like best of one format also doesn't tell you whole like everything, you know?
Yeah.
Well, there's actually a famous quote in English. It says that form is temporary, class is permanent.
Yeah,
and there's the thing, VandeR, you've been playing for like what, 7 years or something at the top now? It's pretty good. 6 or 7. Not bad.
Certainly I didn't win once, so I wouldn't put myself on like the...
Mate, you had NateDOhDoubleG on your team twice. So that guarantees you won't fucking win LEC. Have you seen that guy's career? He's just like Mr. Second Place. He's like, oh, another silver medal. Cool. I just put this in my collection. It's like, come on, motherfucker. You're supposed to win some of these. So, you know. And also, you used to play back in the days where Jankos was like, right, Thorin, you are right. I am the best jungler, but now it's the playoffs. So if you'll excuse me, I've just got to throw something away, and off we go. Like,
well, I think back in the days it was that he had kind of emotional problems, maybe. So it also was showing in best of fives where I don't know. It's like we are winning 2-1, and we're like 2-0 up. We lose this third game. We are winning 2-1, and then he was like mad at the team, kind of.
Yes, there you go.
But now he fixed it completely, and he's like. I mean, he realized his mistakes, right? And he fixed it, and now he performs well. I don't think he like played insanely bad. I mean, there were some best of fives, both me and him. Like that's where the memes came from, like that we choked. But it's not like all the best of fives we played bad. Like,
no, of course not.
Yeah, exactly.
Nah.
You know,
he had a couple of choke games for sure, but it wasn't. And also, you had a lot of.
I remember one game specifically where we against OG, and I was like 0-7-2 on Bard, and he was 0-6 1 Graves.
That
like,
hurts.
The Polish jungle support duo, you know.
By the way, this does also remind me of, like, I don't know if people know this that well publicly, Veteran. I can't remember. I think it was talked about in an interview, maybe even with Forgiven, but it's such a ridiculous story that we have to relate again now that Forgiven's career is over. Like, the actual funniest Forgiven story I have ever heard, because most of them aren't funny, they're just tragic. It's like, you know, a guy just fucking rages at someone, then someone hits him and then gets kicked out of the team or leaves or whatever. Like, those aren't funny, but the funniest story ever is the one where one of the things that ruined it in H2K for him was just that thing where he just for no good reason at all just told Jankos like that he was drunk from drinking vodka or something. Do you remember this story?
Oh,
and Jankos took it really to heart though, like, because obviously it's like a bad stereotype, isn't it? Like,
I think he went like out once and we like came back a bit late, and then for some reason, the next day, Forgiven started calling Jankos alcoholic or something like this, or like drunk.
This guy is one of the stupidest teammates of all time. Like, how would that help anything?
I mean, he didn't call me that, but I went like together with Jankos, you know, on like same path. Yeah, it's not like he was drinking a lot. Like,
no. That's why it was such a stupid story. It's like, what a stupid reason to get your teammate to hate you.
I was so shocked he called him like this in social media. He was like. Yeah, I mean, we went like out maybe twice the whole split, you know. This is like 3 months, so I wouldn't say that's yeah.
For LEC, that's actually vaguely reasonable for LEC, mate.
We went to like celebrate, like we had like a really good weekend. Like I remember the 2 times that we went on H2K, and I just felt like Forgiven was calling him, like I remember the only thing I could think the whole time Forgiven was calling him alcoholic was, okay, the way that this guy takes drinks, there's no way this guy drinks from the reg. There's literally no way. It was probably the most disappointing Polish guy ever.
No, that's probably the stupidest part of it, is that first of all, part of the reason why it's going to annoy Jankos is that's a ridiculous stereotype about Polish people in the same way as it is about Russian people just because of the vodka angle. But the other angle is, have you never seen Jankos? The guy's streaming like 24/7. He's a fucking nerd. He loves to play the jungle role. Like, do you think he's some mad party animal? Like, it's not exactly the right personality type for that, is it? He's a nerd. Like, that's the cool thing about him. He's just a video game player.
I kind of think Jankos is the guy who puts a lot of effort what he's doing. So when he's streaming, he streams really, really a lot, and if he starts drinking, he also.
Right, so okay, VandeR it says, you know, don't give up now, Jankos. You could become an alcoholic with your work ethic and your passion for what you do. Right, fair enough. Okay, I like that.
He has that kind of obsessive personality, right? Like he can become an alcoholic for the same reason that like a housewife becomes an alcoholic, you know? Like he has that kind of obsessive personality there. There you go.
I mean, Jankos for sure, like one of the hardest working players in general. You know, he plays a lot, streams a lot, so a lot of respect for that for sure.
That's one thing that, by the way, is probably the stupidest thing about video games, but it's a wider problem in Western culture, I've noticed, is that people love to think of other people in a static way. Like when we were talking about Caps, like half the reason why everyone's in denial that Caps has sucked in some of these games is because he was so amazing in the past years in mid. So in your brain, you're like, but that's Caps. Like, yeah, he could do anything except fucking play AD carry. Like, you know, like people just overvalue it. So in the same way, right, once you become a top pro, like you're the best at your role, you're a champion, people really think, even those players years later, like, I can kind of phone this in, I can just like practice a bit. I'll tell you the most boring but obvious secret of all the greatest pro gamers of all time. They all loved to practice the game. It's that simple. Like, even when they're 10 years into their career and they've been a champion and a world champion, they're still practicing the game loads. That's why, in general, if you've ever noticed, the players I fuck with the most are the ones who are the work ethic monsters. They can be a total arsehole. As long as I know they actually play the game, I fuck with that.
Oh, God. Well, in that case, I'll break it to you now because the illusion has already been completely destroyed. So it's really fine for me to tell you this now. But every single time scrims were over, Forgiven opened up Netflix and he marathoned like 3 shows that night. And that was it. And there was a period where I had to sleep on the couch in H2K. And I swear to God, Forgiven was up until like 6 a.m, just watching shows and laughing like fuck. He was not like a massive solo queue spammer, which is partly why champ pool issues.
I mean, for sure, Forgiven was not like the guy who played like the most solo queue.
Yeah.
I mean, he was at some point, I feel like Copenhagen Wolves times and stuff.
Yeah, a long time
But
for sure.
later, for sure not. I think Jankos was like a guy who always has spammed solo queue. I think for me it was like, depends on the times. Sometimes I was playing like a lot as well, but I had like some slumps, which I probably shouldn't have, but I did.
It's like I told people before, I said this on this episode when we had the Crackdown, when we had Perks on. I was like, even though he's now a champion, blah, 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 all the rest of it, Jankos, he's still underrated for his career because the guy literally played, just as long as you did, VandeR, like 6 years in LEC level and was like, worst case scenario, maybe 1 split, he was the 4th best jungler. And he plays the role that the game literally gets reinvented every fucking year. Like, that's actually amazing that someone can be that consistent over that many years and be that good.
I think about
that
Jankos or Perks now?
No, they're talking about Jankos.
Oh, okay.
That's actually super impressive.
Yeah, we started playing this together, you know, so we play the same amount of time. And it's true. I mean, he was always like top 3, I would even say, you know, every single time.
Wait, were you real life friends before?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was like we got to know each other on like some random Polish LAN somewhere. Like it was like really small LAN. And then
VandeR said, listen, Jankos, put that bottle of vodka down. Come with me.
I was talking to him for like the whole night, and I was like, oh, this guy is actually pretty good. I like talking to him. He has a lot of drive. And then when KMT, so like Overpower, Selaver and Zaxus, they were looking for support jungle. I already knew Selaver really well. We played together for a long time. Then he asked me, I was playing ADC with him before, and we kind of like playing with each other. And then I was playing support for like half a year already. And he asked me if I'm like ready to play for a serious team and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then he also asked me for a jungle. And I said, yeah, I like know this guy from like this Polish event. He was pretty good. And he has like a lot of drive. So we should try him as well. And they did some tryouts for me and him, I think. And that's how the team got formed pretty much.
There you go. I didn't know that. Now I know.
Okay. I think we'll just call this episode Life After Rockat because everyone's been on Rockat, who's the guest, and there's still Life After Rockat.
Kind of.
Actually,
was Veteran Rocket?
No, he wasn't, but I just...
I'm not a guest, so we're all good.
All right, exactly. Sorry.
Yeah, do you actually... Here's the thing, Steeelback. This is what I'll do as a gift, because listen, I'll lie for the sake of the cameras because it sounds funnier and say I feel bad for flaming you in that thread, because if anyone doesn't know, go and check out the tweet where Forgiven says that Steeelback's giga boosted, because I actually jumped straight in afterwards and also dunk on him completely. So I would lie and say I feel bad for that. I don't. I thought it was straight fire banter, and it's just tweets anyway, mate. Who gives a fuck? But I'll give you this gift, right? Being as Forgiven will probably never be on a show again ever. Like, he's going to be living under a fucking rock, just retweeting stuff to get stuff down on his timeline. So being as he'll never say anything, and you can have the final word, Steeelback. Do you have any comments about? You can talk about Forgiven or just the end of his career or anything, or maybe how he played as an ADC this year. Was he giga boosted in any way, Steeelback?
I mean, Definitely, I got stuff to say, but I will be the good guy and I won't do it.
Oh, boo,
You want the
boo.
drama, Pierre?
This isn't a riot show. You can say whatever you want here.
I mean, I wish him the best, and
Just
I
like for
hope that
Hylissang.
that maybe he comes back one day, and then I get to play against him when I'm support.
Well, some would actually
maybe he'll
say.
be support as well. Like he,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that.
His most played is
his
Blitzcrank on his account right now.
His
Yeah.
blitz hooks are pretty decent, I must admit.
This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Andrew, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Dean Tanglis, Chi Mao, JDubs, NateDOhDoubleG, Peter the Feeder, Tobias Bernasconi, and a special thanks, as always, goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask me a question in my monthly AMA. Would you like teasers for who the next guests are on my shows? Maybe you even want to take part in a niche, obscure esports discussion with me. We'll put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.